Hours to go before polling stations open for the repeat presidential election set for Thursday, October 26th. The question many are asking is, what exactly will happen on that day and what will happen in the days after Thursday, given that one side of the political divide insists there will be no such election. The official campaign period in relation to Thursday's poll lapsed at midnight. Yet today, NASA takes its no reforms, no election agitation to the Ukambani counties of Machakos, Kitui and Makueni. Will they be in contravention of the election laws, given that the campaign is directly tied to Thursday's process, whether or not they will be part of it? CS Fred Matiang'i yesterday said that any political gathering beyond the official campaign period will be considered illegal. Will he use the police to disperse the NASA Ukambani rallies today? Meanwhile, anti-IEBC demos as called by NASA resumed today and will continue to tomorrow, according to the plan. CS Matiang'i's directive restricting the demos from within the central business districts of Nairobi, Kisumu and Mombasa was suspended temporarily last week by the courts. Does this mean the demonstrators will be allowed into town? Will Matiang'i defy the courts and order police to disperse the demonstrators? Elsewhere, heads of diplomatic missions have spoken once more. Are we listening? Should we even bother? Welcome to Citizen Extra. My name is Fred Indumuli. This morning, these are the discussions we're going to have. Let's now get an update from Kisumu with regard to the planned demonstrations. Laura Otieno is on standby. A very good morning to you, Laura. What's happening in Kisumu? Do you expect demonstrations as NASA called them?
Well, very good morning to you, Fred, back at the Communication Center. And yes, in Kisumu County, as of yesterday, we had sections of local leadership saying that they were indeed geared up for the demonstrations today, but you're trying to get in touch with them basically to know what their plan is and how they're going to start and what exactly they're going to do, but we have not succeeded in that. But right now, it's not a typical Tuesday morning here in Kisumu County. It's not business as usual. Our spot check at the CBD reveals that some shops are open. Some pockets of traders are busy operating their businesses. Some have a good number have kept their shops closed. But right now, Fred, if my cameraman could just zoom in, that at the main bus stage, there's a huge there's a cloud of smoke that is emanating from that place, and we understand that some people have already started setting up bonfires at certain points of the road. But in regards of an organized sort of demonstrations like the one we have been witnessing here in the county ever since, is that there's nothing really going on at this time. And as of yesterday, Fred, yesterday night at around 9 p.m., there was already a confrontation between police and locals. The police were doing some sort of patrol. We had some of the water cannons doing rounds in town, and there was some slight confrontation at the main bus stage. And at 9 p.m., tear gas canisters were already thrown at some of the people that were around town at that time. But right now in the morning, it's a situation that is sort of calm, but there's that kind of tension going on. That the people we're speaking to are saying that they don't know what to expect. They're all just fearing for their safety. But what we've also witnessed is that traders have really gone a long way in beefing up securities in their premises. We're seeing some people installing extra doors on their businesses. Basically, they were telling us that they want to ensure that they don't incur losses during especially this week, Fred.
Laura, before I let you go, what about the security presence? Are you seeing police probably in town doing their rounds and patrolling in readiness for the demonstrators?
Well, Fred, since yesterday there's been some sort of police presence, not the usual we normally see, just a slight increase. So it's not the usual that we normally see during demonstrations, where we see a lot of police officers walking around at the CBD and some areas in Kondele. There are policemen, but not so many of them. They're just walking around. What we are seeing are administration police officers, not anti-riot. You know, in the past week or in the past weeks, since the demonstration started, we had anti-riot police actually patrolling the area with full combat. They already had their helmets on and their shields, but we are only seeing administration police walking around. But we understand that security, what we got from the regional commissioner is that security has been beefed up and they're ready to deal with anybody who wants to disrupt peace in Kisumu town.
Thank you, Laura. Laura Otieno there with an update on the situation in Kisumu this morning. Of course, with the expectation that the demonstrations as called by NASA will be taking place there. We'll be getting an update from Laura later on. We'll also be getting updates from Eldoret, John Wanyama in a short while, Martin Monene from Nyeri as well. But let me now introduce my guests in studio this morning. We do have Mary Mwangi, political analyst, MP for Kipipiri, Amos Kimunya. We also do have David Osiani, political analyst. We also expect that Ledama Olekina, Senator Narok, and Joseph Simera, political strategist, will be joining us as we go along with the show. But I'll start off with the panelists I do have. And good morning. And I put it to you that none of you, despite your political alignments or affiliation, none of you knows what will happen on Thursday or what will happen after that. You think you know, you imagine what will happen, but none of you can be certain what will happen on Thursday. Mary.
In fact, you're very correct. I was listening to a political analyst on BBC who's an expert on Africa and especially East Africa, and this political analyst was saying for the first time they do not know what will happen, and it's the worst case scenario basically for any political analyst to be in, whether we're going to have elections or not, whether Honorable Raila will participate or not, whether there will be violence or not. This is a situation where everything is up in the air.
Bwana Kimunya, you also have no idea what will happen. You believe you know what will happen.
We've been campaigning. And I think your opening statement was very clear. 48 hours before the polls open.
It's actually less than 48 hours now. It should be like about 44 hours.
We've been campaigning. We've trained our agents. We know IBC is busy mobilizing materials on the ground. We've trained their POs. We've seen, we witnessed all that. So, and everything is set up for the polls. So, there's no indication to me that there will be no election.
So you're sure
I'm sure
there will be an election? And what happens after that, the day after the election?
We'll do the counting and the tallying. And then we'll go and there'll be an announcement of a winner among the several candidates. And then after that, we'll wait to see what happens.
And will there be elections all over the country in all the 290 constituencies?
Yes.
Okay.
All preparations are in place. We've been assured, and Kenyans have been assured of security. And I wouldn't want to get some Kenyans joining the bandwagon of saying because somebody said in a political area that don't go and vote, right? Without telling them what is the alternative, right? You don't vote, what happens, right? Because that is the unfortunate.
That's the uncertainty I'm talking about.
No, if people don't vote, what happens to them? What happens to their right?
What happens to Kenya if they do not vote?
Kenya will continue. But what happens to their right to make a decision?
Okay.
Right? So, because if you refuse to vote, the person you do not want may well get in. Right? And then what do? You stand for the next 5 years cursing that I do not vote for him, yet you refuse to vote.
David?
I think the most important thing is let Kenyans know it's an individual decision. It's not a collective decision.
Yes. David, are you as sure as Amos Kimunya about what will happen? Are you as certain?
You know, this very show has vindicated me before. When there was haggling about whether or not Raila would withdraw from the electoral process, the day before he withdrew, I was here in the morning and I said, mark my words, Raila will not be part of the political process, and before the day ends there's a likelihood he'll even send in a letter to say he will not be part of that process. Today, Mary is not too sure. Honorable Kimunya, who is one of the people of Kipipiri, are gifted to have him. He says he's not too sure, yet I know he knows.
He says
because he has a handle.
He has said he's actually sure.
Handle the character Raila Odinga, he knows.
I know.
I can put it to you as certain as the sun rises in the east and will set in the west today, that on Thursday there'll be no election. We have 48 hours to no elections in this country. He says that if other people in this country refuse to vote, then what happens to them? The country will move on. The country will not move on. We are in a crisis, Freddie, of legitimacy and legality, both of which define political processes. But, however, legitimacy confers upon legality. That even by law, and by law you may decide to say, I'm moving on. But will you be a legitimate leader for the entire country? No. And if the country, even one constituency, Freddie, if one constituency, Article 138 of the Constitution, decides that there is not a single person to show up on that ballot box and vote, even one, then that process is null and void, because elections ought to happen in 290 constituencies.
Now, Fred, I think we are talking different things here.
Yes.
The Constitution is very clear. Election shall be conducted, okay, in every constituency.
Exactly.
So long as IEBC put their apparatus, and obviously they have the option. If you know, the guys who are told to disrupt create so much chaos, it can be postponed to another day. If there's some heavy downpour or some fires and all that, and it has happened even in the past.
Yes.
Where I think some place in northeastern there was lots of rain and ballot papers could not be taken and had to actually be postponed in some area, with a caveat, of course, that the one area that is postponed after everyone else has voted, you then have to look at, would this area make an impact? Okay, if it's only 50,000, if Kipipiri is zoned off, that there is heavy but downpour and Kipipiri can't vote, the 51,000 votes in Kipipiri, what is in their totality is the effect on the 8.2 million votes that come out.
I think that is the...
Okay. But
before that, I think in terms of the legitimacy, we must go back to our constitution. What is the threshold for presidential election? 50 plus 1. Not 100%. Not 100%.
Yes.
When we were making that constitution, we were very clear that there is a possibility that 50% of the country could vote for a president or not. In the past, we had President Moi being voted by 35%.
Yes.
He was legitimate. He ruled for 24 years, right? So you could actually get even, but the constitution now said 50 plus 1. And if you don't get 50 plus 1 because you are many, whoever gets the majority in the runoff, yeah, whether it's 30% or 20%, so long as you met the other thresholds of the 25%.
Because now we've gone beyond the election date. Yes. What do you think?
So legitimacy is based on did the people come out to vote. Now, if some person wants to play mischief and tells, I'm not participating and I'm not getting my people to vote, you cannot then come back, yeah? Kill your parents and start claiming relief because you are not fun.
You know, I think Honorable now that you've one of the best financial minds in the country, David, he cannot feign figures.
Now that you've already moved on from the election date, because you're both certain, and I'll come back to Mary because at least she is neither on this side. No, I did not say that.
I'm for the people.
No, Mary.
Okay.
So what happens? Are you certain what will happen after Thursday?
First, let me answer Honorable Kimunya, because Honorable Kimunya is not a person who has stumbled upon figures. And so when he reads the Constitution, he knows that it's not 50% plus 1 of no figure. He knows it's 50% plus 1 of the national tally. And that if there is no national tally,
of the voter turnout,
national tally equals voter turnout, national tally, 290 constituencies. And that if there is no national tally, then the 50% plus 1 is null and void. That he understands very well. Secondly, I want Honorable Kimunya to appreciate that this country belongs to everyone. And that the sense of entitlement, the crisis that Jubilee has run into is because of this sense of entitlement. The narrative for them is, let's go, let's be declared president, let's negotiate once we have the presidency, which is tragic. However, we are faced with the 26th, which will come. The certain thing, I'm very sure, and I want to wish the president a happy birthday. His birthday will come and go, but there will be no election on that.
But what happens
now thereafter? I think we will have a reason to sit down, climb down from our horses, both Honorable Raila Odinga and President Kenyatta and his allies like Honorable Kimunya, and tell them, you see what, sir, this is about the country. And President Uhuru Kenyatta is running to try and get a second term. There is nothing any other president wants in his last term than to try and leave a legacy. And he does not, I bet, want to leave a legacy of divisiveness. He wants to leave a legacy of having brought the country together, having been able to be the man who mended a segregationist nation, and that cobbled together people from different tribes and made them feel as though they belong. I remember one of my classmates, Glenn Chemutai, who comes from Rift Valley, yesterday in her post wrote a profound thing. She said, I have sat in my conscience and realize that this country cannot be about the big tribes of this country. And on that basis alone, until the president is able to accept that all Kenyans belong, I will not vote. And so 26th will come. When it is gone, because there will be no election on that day, we can sit down together and sanely, with absolute and abundance of sanity, decide which is the way for our country.
So the way for this country will be decided after 26th, that's according to you, but according to Bwana Kimunya, the way will be decided on the 26th.
On the 26th, Kenyans will come out and vote.
Yes.
But I have a question to the two of you.
Just before your question.
Okay.
On 26th, Kenyans will come out and vote because it's their constitutional right. It's their duty. In fact, it's not even a right, it's a duty. Right? They have to actually come out and vote. And once they have voted, based on the studies of the figures, we are assuming that only people in Central and Rift Valley will vote. But I can be sure there will be people at the coast voting, there will be people in Nyanza voting, there will be people in Western Kenya voting, there will be people in Turkana voting, there will be people across the entire country voting in all the 290 constituencies. And anyone trying to stop them, right, will be committing an illegality.
Okay.
And will be dealt with accordingly.
Okay.
Right? So the first thing, and I'm very glad that Honorable Wetangula yesterday in Kisii said, if you don't want to vote, stay at home and make babies. Right? So, to increase the votes for the future. Which is very good advice. At least he's not telling them, go out to the street to disrupt the others. Stay at home and, prepare for the future. But remember in last November, we had the US election. Right? President Trump versus Secretary Clinton. Right? She won the majority votes. She had more votes, but he won the electoral votes. Did that bring an issue of legitimacy? America is moving on because that's the situation.
Allow me to take an update. Allow me to take an update from Eldoret. Gentlemen, let's start take an update from Eldoret. John Wanyama is on standby with the MP for Sirisia, John Waluke. Good morning, John. What does the MP have to tell us with regard to this repeat presidential poll?
A very good morning to you back to the studio in Dimuli and here in Eldoret, Uasin Gishu County. As clearly you've said, I'm with the MP Waluke here, whom we would like to talk to. And as you know, one day to go to the election, and the country is on the brink so far, and everyone is confused, wondering whether this election will be taking place tomorrow or not. Mheshimiwa, without wasting time, kindly come closer to me here. Yes. Where are we heading as a nation, and do you think this election will be happening on 26th?
To be honest, the country is heading on a wrong direction by NASA people, especially the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. He wants this country. He has taken it for granted for too long, and this country is bigger than Raila. I want to tell Kenyans that Kenya is bigger than Raila, Kenya is bigger than Uhuru, and he decided himself to pull out of the race as a presidential candidate because he was broke. To be honest, he did not have money, capacity to push him to finish his elections. That was the only reason. And this is like a match between let's say Arsenal and Manu. So he just decided to pull out because he did not have money for campaign. That is what we know, and that was his own making. And he cannot punish the country. We cannot suffer. Even the economy of the country has gone down completely just because of one person. We are tired of him, and we are not happy. And he should rethink, because this country is really suffering because of Raila Odinga.
Mheshimiwa, he's planning maybe to announce a big announcement tomorrow. What do you think is he up to?
He's only up to the coup. That is what I can say.
Mheshimiwa, that's a very serious allegation.
That is a serious allegation, and that is what I can say. There is nothing that has remained with Raila to say, because I'm sure he has recruited so many policemen in different police stations to support him. And we are warning him that we will not allow him do what he did 1982.
John Waluke there, the MP for Sirisia, talking to our correspondent, our reporter in Eldoret, John Wanyama. Of course, some of those opinions are his, and everyone is entitled to their own opinion. We continue with this discussion here. Of course, very divided opinions. You could see the distinction, Mary. You could see the distinction. It's so clear.
I'm talking for the people.
Yes.
So the people are questioning. There was a Supreme Court ruling. There was this ruling that said we have to have the election within 60 days. So that is what is going to happen. However, the opposition is not comfortable with the IEBC and the processes. Granted, we understand. Now the question is, as the international observers said, why not go to court and ask for these changes to be made or an extension to the date of the election? Because right now we're facing a situation where the entire country is split down the middle. We're having a zero-sum game where politics is about the numbers and one side has more numbers than the other. So let us sit down and decide, how do we sort this issue out as a people, as one people?
Mary, they've already said they're not interested in any talks before the election. Let's listen to what the president had to say about this issue yesterday. Let's start with the president. We'll also get to hear what the NASA leader Raila Odinga said about the process on Thursday. Let's start with the president.
Wacha yule ambaye anataka kupiga kura apige kura kwa amani. Au ni namna gani? Si namna hiyo? Si namna hiyo? Kila mtu apate haki yake. We yako ya kukosa kupiga na sisi yetu ya kupiga kura. Au namna gani? Kuna shida hapo? Si kila mtu amepata haki yake? Si kila mtu amepata haki yake? Lakini yule ambaye anataka kupiga kura, yule ambaye atadhubutu kujaribu kusimamisha huyo au kumsumbua au kumtisha, ndio atajua ya kwamba kuna serikali nchi yetu ya Kenya. Kwa sababu tumelinda haki yako ya kukosa kupiga kura, wewe huna haki ya kwenda kusumbua yule ambaye anataka kupiga kura.
President Uhuru Kenyatta there speaking yesterday while campaigning in Nairobi. Incidentally, the official campaign period ended at midnight. Let's now listen to what Raila Odinga, the NASA leader, had to say about the process on Thursday.
Hii uchaguzi haitakuwa ni uchaguzi. Kwa sababu tulisema tarehe 26 hakuna uchaguzi Kenya. Ile ni public relations exercise na inaitwa opinion poll ya Jubilee. Tume haiwezi kufanya uchaguzi wa haki na kweli. Sisi Chebukati yeye amesema. Sivyo? Yale ambayo Chebukati amesema yote na yale ambayo Kombe alisema, sisi kama wananasa tulikuwa tumesaona mbele. Tunaona mbele kabisa. Kaona kama kuna mtego. Tukakataa. Na kwamba hii hapa sisi hatuingii. Kama wananasa tukikutana hapa siku ya leo katika uwanja wa Kisii Stadium, ambao ni uwanja wa kihistoria, pale ambapo Nyandika Mayora alitoka, tunasema ati tarehe 26 mwezi wa Oktoba hakuna uchaguzi hapa Kisii na Nyamira.
Raila Odinga there speaking from Kisii County yesterday while campaigning for the October no election agitation. As I mentioned earlier, Senator Ledama Olekina from Narok was to join this panel. He is here with us. Senator, good morning. Karibu sana.
Good morning.
We're just looking at the kind of division that we have currently. There are those who are so sure that there will be an election come Thursday. There are those who are so certain that there will be no election. I'll put this question the way I put it to the other panelists. I put it to you that even you do not know what will happen on Thursday.
I know what will happen on Thursday. There will be no election in this country. We are divided, and this is evident across the country. Talk to 10 people, 6 people will be of the contrary view. And I think the worst mistake we are making as a nation is to allow this administration to force us to be united. And I can tell you, on Thursday, if any form of election proceed, first of all, it will not be in the 290 constituencies as prescribed in the Constitution, Article 138(2). Secondly, this country, not everyone, assuming the Jubilee administration uses force, uses the police like we've seen them doing it, and ensure that the police vote in those polling stations, you will find that maybe the number of people who will probably show up and vote will be about maybe 4 million maximum. Where is the legitimacy? So I think now it behooves us as leaders to try and put the interest of this country first before we put our own interest.
And I'll take the question further. Fine, you say you're certain there will be no election on 26th. So what will happen the day after Thursday?
In my view, the day after, we will have a more divided nation. There will be a lot of civil disobedience. And I'm going to use this word like I use in a different television station. Hypothetically, suppose the people in the coast region decide to block everything, affect the operations on the port. Then the people in Kisumu decides, no, there's no one going through here. What we are going to be doing as a leader in the region, we are going to be affecting not only the standard of living, all the lives of the people of Kenya, but actually the life of the people who in this region, Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda. So, in my view, I am of the opinion that I think it is a high time that we look at the Constitution. And I've heard what other panelists have said. I know Mheshimiwa Muskimunya said that he doesn't see anything wrong, and he doesn't see any situation as to why there will be no election. And I've heard the lady who is speaking for the people talking about Article 140 of the Constitution. I think we can use this Constitution and we can find solutions in this Constitution to be able to
before the 26th?
Yes.
In the next
I think, yes. And let me quantify what I think. I think when you look at the Constitution, when you look at Article 146 of the Constitution, there's a situation whereby the office of the President and the office of the Deputy President can be vacant. And in my plea to His Excellency Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, the President of this country, my plea is for him to resign and pave way for the Speaker of the National Assembly to be the neutral person, to hold office within 60 days, and then we try and see whether we can unite this country.
We've seen a lot of things in Africa. We are yet to see a president resign because of a disputed election.
And I think he talks about loving this country.
Let us get some basics right. I think it will be very unfair to Kenyans to tie elections to the whims of one person. So if he decides he's participating, it's an election. If he withdraws by mistake and then realizes it's been a mistake, it's not an election. Then he calls it a referendum, an opinion poll for the participants who participate. So basically we're talking semantics here. There'll be an election. Raila calls it an opinion poll. We are calling it an election. So let's go on with the election. Let Kenyans come out. Let's see whether 4 million voters come out, or 10 million voters, or 12 million, or even all the 19.6. Right? That can only be determined on that day, how many people actually come out. Right? Now, the second bit I want to say is even in the Constitution, it was never anticipated that an election would actually be cancelled because of one person being mischievous and withdrawing. The anticipation is that if a candidate dies, because that's an act of God, right? But because if you then anticipate those things, that then you'll have continuous elections, that if I'm running Kibipiri and I find that I'm not prepared, right? All I need is come out and withdraw within 1 week to go, so that an election can be postponed. Okay? And that is not what the framers of the Constitution anywhere in the world would anticipate. But an act of God is anticipated. So the first thing we have to ask ourselves is, why are we in this situation? We are in this situation because a candidate has withdrawn, right? And instead of accepting to wait until 2022, when the next election will be, and prepare himself, and all these change that we need, then he basically telling supporters, let us not go on. Now, Honorable Rekina is bringing a very important, observation in terms of what is envisaged should the President and Deputy President vacate office and the Speaker takes over. The Speaker will still have the incumbency limitations. Now, Can he hire new commissioners?
No.
Right? Can he do the changes that are required, the fundamental changes to IEBC that NASA is asking for? Of course not.
Okay.
So we are basically putting ourselves from the frying pan into the fire, right?
Yes.
When we are watching.
Okay.
So let's go on with the election, right? And then we solve the matter. After that, when we now have a legitimately elected president, whoever among the 8 will be elected on that day will be the president of Kenya.
Okay.
Then we will at least have some situation where we can say, now you're the president, we've lifted the incumbency issues, right? Now let us start the process of healing the nation.
Okay, Senator, just in
let me just respond to that. I think it is not right to say that the speaker, having sort of like limitation, cannot be able to help this country move forward. The problem we are facing right now is that we have raised concerns that whatever is happening because of the problems of Jubilee and also the IEBC. There are things that the court order mandated IEBC to do, but they have not done them. Now, in my view, I feel like there's a lot of interest in terms of power. And I keep repeating that political power is gained by participating in a political process, whether for or against. In this case, we are not neutral. We ought to be neutral. Okay? We feel that the Jubilee administration is using public resources to be able to gain an advantage. So if you really care about the future of this country, I believe that if the speaker takes over, it will even make it comfortable for the IEBC to continue doing their work, because they'll feel like now we have a neutral person who is superseding us. Finally, on that issue, exactly, and that is the reason why I'm saying it will not be a big problem, because it will be a neutral person. And if the speaker cannot hold it because there is a case in court challenging his election, the Chief Justice can be able to hold it. And finally, for me to state this thing, Honorable Amos Kimunya, the mistakes which you're talking about are brought about by Jubilee rushing things. Number one, point in case, county governments are now suffering. There's no money which has been dispersed to them. The CS for Treasury, Rotich, came in and said there was a mistake in the disbursement schedule that was passed by the Senate. That disbursement schedule was rushed by the majority leader, who is from the Jubilee. So these mistakes are costing this country a lot of things.
Okay.
So we cannot.
I'm trying to avoid that ping pong between the Senator and
because they have refused to attend Parliament and things are happening and they can't oversight.
Okay.
Yeah.
The president says yule atakayedhubutu kuzuia uchaguzi siku hiyo atajua kwamba kuna serikali
atakipata.
And I'm thinking there are about more than 35 lives of Luo young people who have died before the election. Was that the Serikali he means? Where was Serikali when the son of Bob Milona was shot dead? Where was Serikali? Where is this the same president who was praying on Sunday and saying, "Forgive us, oh dear Lord"? Is that the language of a leader? You know, I've called on leaders of this country and all of us from different sides to be civil. Civility is the hallmark of good leadership. Now, Honorable Kimunya says very comfortably that the speaker is Jubilee. I thought that once the speaker is gotten to the point of speakership, regardless of whether or not he comes from the majority in the House, he stops aligning himself to party. He becomes another Marende that we had. Ideally, which is what he did not do in the last election and will not do now. However, Honorable Kimunya also speaks from both sides of the mouth. Honorable Kimunya believes, because Ladama Olekina has said, that why then won't the president resign so that then we have the speaker take charge? And Honorable Kimunya opines that if he did that, then the speaker does not have the mandate to make the reforms needed by NASA, as though the president currently sitting has done anything to better the situation. All right, so we will be having a zero-sum game where Kenyans feel there's someone different to lead the country.
No, it's totally different.
Do you have anything to say before Bwana Kimunya
I think it's
because I feel the gentlemen are just taking
again, there's a lot of politics being discussed here.
Yes.
And remember, this is about leading the people of the nation of Kenya, regardless of their ethnic background, regardless of their political affiliations. Put them first. You mentioned the young men who have lost their lives during the picketing process, and our heart goes out to those individuals. Our heart goes out to anybody who has been injured in the process. I am not going down that line. My concern is what was pointed out to me on the weekend. I was interviewing the advocate Feroz Noorji, respectable human rights lawyer, and he says that we as a nation have not reached that point where each and every one of us are beginning to feel the pain of this kind of politics. When we get there, and we don't want to get there, we will end up in quagmire, and that is what we don't want. So what we're asking is for the two leaders on either side to reach some form of a decision. If it is the 26th, then let everybody participate, because as Amos Kimunya has pointed out, there are other candidates on that ballot paper and they have supporters. Why are we denying people their right to vote? Those who feel that it is not a legitimate process also have the right not to vote, but let there not be violence against the IEBC officials or denying people the right to vote.
Yes, and I think that's the civility that I like the call for civility. First of all, let's remember, when the president makes those comments, there's nobody else in this country who has taken the oath to defend the Constitution except him, right? Now, Raila has no responsibility. Fair enough. To defend anyone. He can tell everyone, go to the street, get killed if you have to be killed.
By the president?
No, by whoever. No. What I'm saying, get killed by whoever it is.
That kind of argument goes nowhere.
Even being run over by vehicles, even in a stampede between themselves, he has no responsibility, right? Using, very youths who just don't have jobs to create chaos and cause themselves chaos in a process. But when you now look at the language that was used in Kisii yesterday, what did Raila describe the IEBC commissioners as? There was a Kombe and how takataka wengine. You can play the clip. Yeah, it's very clear that the ones who went to Dubai was a Kombe and takataka.
No, you got it wrong. Actually, you got it wrong. And I challenge Citizen to play the clip. He was not referring to the IEBC. No. He was not referring to the IEBC.
We shall not refer to that clip until we find it. My director is working on that.
I stand corrected.
But he mentioned,
but he never referred to the other.
He went to Dubai
refer to it
together with the other takataka.
No.
Right?
You will stand corrected.
I have it here.
Please play.
Then what did he refer to the president and deputy president as? Okay? That's Mwizi na Mlevi. That's the civility we are talking of. It's on the same clip.
Okay. No. So
gentlemen,
let me respond.
So when you now have that kind of situation,
remember, it is 44 hours before 26th. This kind of division is not why we have this kind of money.
And what I'm asking for, what I'm asking for, and I think we are all together on this.
Yeah.
Let leaders have some civility in the way they address
all leaders, sides of the political divide.
Now, I agree with that. The president has not called anyone names. He's just given a stern warning that anyone who dares
is not names.
No.
Wakora.
No, he didn't say Wakora yesterday.
Okay,
let's move on. Basically, he said anyone who disrupts the right of another Kenyan, who denies him the right to exercise his constitutional right, will be dealt with in accordance with the law. Yeah. He said, there's a law, right?
Now the assumption is that it's either NASA or Jubilee that has a final word on this election come 26th.
The people
but remember that the IEBC is a body mandated to run this election. IEBC is the one that came up with this date. IEBC could actually go to court and decide to seek a clarification, because IEBC chairman and one commissioner have said they are having challenges here and there. They could decide to go to court. That is provided.
As of this morning, they say they were ready.
We still have 44 hours to go.
Yeah.
They could resign. It is also a possibility.
Yeah.
Yes. The fact that both Bona Kimunya, who represent Jubilee, and Bona David Osiani, and the senator who represent...
Actually, today I represent Kenya.
I represent NASA.
You can see my fly.
Let me say this.
The fact that you think you have the power over anything that happens in this country is a fallacy.
Yes.
That there are other people who do have the power beyond you.
What if IEBC actually decides there's no election come 26th?
Exactly.
There was a very well-written article by Advocate Kathy Kilonzo over the weekend, and she did point that out. But then remember, Dr. Akombe stood before the international community and the civil society and said they were ready.
Yes.
So the question now comes about, why the complete turnaround on her part? Why the attack on the IEBC after they have said that everything has been put in place? And then why this heated discussion about this date, yet you know the Supreme Court ruling allowed for 60 days for us to hold the election within those 60 days. Otherwise we will face a crisis. So the question now is, why can't we be sober about it in terms of our leadership and go to court if we're not comfortable with what is happening right now?
Yes. Is the NASA counting on that fact that, because even in the latest rallies, even as late as yesterday, we've had the NASA leadership calling on Wafula Chebukati, the IEBC chairman, to actually stand firm and say that he is not able to run that election. Is NASA still counting on the fact that the IEBC still has time to actually say the process will not go?
Wafula Chebukati himself said that the commission is partisan. I wonder why Mary is so shocked about Akombe when Akombe made it very clear that she was tired of those fallacious shows that she would have. You know, get to the media because it is convenient yet not right. Her conscience wouldn't live with it. And she was under threat. That is why she had to go and declare the truth from outside this country. Okay? So Chebukati later himself said that he is the pilot of this plane and he knows there is not enough fuel to take it there, and whenever he consults the commission, the IEBC, which has the redundant adjective of independent, all these commissions were envisaged to be independent. Judicial Service Commission, the EACC, but out of the abundance of caution, we even added the word independent to IEBC. Yet, it is painful when the chairman agrees that the majority of the commissioners are so partisan that they cannot look at things objectively. Now, that leads us into a crisis. That's not what we got that commission to. I wish they were like the JSC, which has decided that we will not take politics, we will not let politics come in. When they were appointing the Chief Justice, remember the JSC, Jubilee had a candidate supposedly, and NASA had a supposed candidate. They left both of them and settled for Maraga because they knew this is about the country. Now, let me go back to the Honorable Kimunya. Honorable Kimunya has indicated, and I agree with him, that it's only the president who's taken the oath of office to protect and defend the lives of Kenyans. Now, where is this oath and where is this presidency when 67 lives die, and yet not even once the president has sent a message of condolence?
I want us to focus really on the day Thursday. Let's not go to other discussions because I think go on and on.
Because I believe there are some investigations ongoing on that. But going
Honorable Kimunya,
now that you move towards me, I think the first thing we need to look at is Chebukati made a statement last Wednesday, right?
Yes.
Since then, how many days have passed?
It's a week now.
It's a week now. Since then, we've seen lots of adverts in the media showing the changes that are taking place, the preparedness. So there's no indication that the situation as obtained then is still obtaining now, right? So he has not come out to say, so far I was frustrated and I'm still being frustrated, right?
He has also not come out to say I was frustrated.
But he doesn't have to say he's okay because, and in fact, the issue was very clear that he's been having issues in terms of decision making within this commission, right? But his closing statement, or paragraph, was that you as the players in this game, you political parties, leave me alone to sort out my commission, right? And give me space. And everyone gave him space. So we assume he's now sorted out his house. And I think the most important thing is that the commission was envisaged to work as a body corporate, right? Otherwise we don't have had the chairman and the chief executive. It's a body corporate. And one of the hallmarks of leadership is to get your people to move together with you. So it's unfortunate that actually Chebukati came out to say that he has differences with his people, because those are internal matters. You don't fight even in your own home and go and start telling everyone else I'm having problems at home. You sort out that at home, right? So there should always have been a united front. Akombe resigning is an issue. We knew and it was revealed in Kisii.
If two more resign,
No, it was revealed in Kisii yesterday by none other than former Prime Minister Raila about the conversations they were having, the contact he was making. She called him when she was at the airport, right? So that's NASA more that was there at the commission.
let me actually listen to this too.
NASA is very uncomfortable. They don't have more to tell them what is happening.
Okay.
So if there was interference within the commission, right? We now know where the interference was coming from. And you can remember, even at the point when they were in Bomas, the issue was we have received intelligence from our people on the inside. That kept on being said. In fact, I think there's a matter.
Let me just respond. I like the way the Honorable Kimunya has actually told the Kenyans that Uhuru took the oath. I want to remind you that Article 3 of this Constitution gives me a right, and every Kenyan to defend the Constitution. So what I'm doing is defending the Constitution. That is issue number one. Number two, the reason why I believe Chebukati came out and said I'm having a difficulty under duress is because this is a matter of public interest. That is issue number two. Number three, let us not lie to each other, because Jubilee and NASA, both of us are at fault in making sure that when we are forming the commission, both our interest is being taken into consideration. Because the commissioners who are there were seconded by both parties, okay, to be able to safeguard their interest. It is very clear. This country, it is clear. No, in fact, even if you look at it, even if it's a direct application, let me tell you, even if it's a direct application, let me tell you, because I know this as a fact, okay? And I challenge you, both the commissioners who are there, there are some who are leaning towards Jubilee and there are some who are leaning towards NASA. That is, common interest. And it's actually common knowledge. It's known. When you look at even the chairman, I can actually say my brother was number 2 out of 8. But the person who was number 8 is the one who was taken because my brother was seen to be leaning towards NASA, which is not true. The guy doesn't even, practice any interest in politics. So, I think the most important thing. But the most important thing is this: there was a question that was put across, and this is what is very important. The 26th. I care about this country so much. I want this country to be able to even be better than most developed nations. The only way we can do is now for us to set our own interest aside and postpone this election. In fact, I would even ask Chebukati to call a press conference today and say enough. I cannot continue like this. Chebukati clearly gave 2 examples, which I know the former Minister of Finance is alive to that fact, that in Zimbabwe, when Morgan Tsvangirai withdrew his candidature, the economy went from 5% to the current 0.7%. In Burundi, when the opposition candidate withdrew his candidature, the economy went from 4.5% to the current 0.5%. Is that where you really want us to take Kenya?
Okay. And even before you answer that question, let's take a break. Before the break, that I have to take a break now. Let's go on a break. We'll be back to discuss this.
Okay.